It was supposed to be a new beginning, a simple trip that would change their lives. But as the airport alarms blared and police dogs swarmed around his daughter, Ethan Gray felt his heart shatter into pieces he could never put back together. His 9-year-old girl, with her trembling hands clutching a worn-out teddy bear, stood frozen as 14 trained police dogs circled her, barking and growling. The officers shouted orders, people gasped, phones recorded. And then, as chaos swallowed the terminal, one dog, a massive German shepherd, suddenly stopped, looked straight at the little girl, and sat down. Not if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the unseen power of love, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Moments. Story. Because sometimes, one story can remind the world that miracles still happen in the most unexpected ways. Ethan Gray wasn't a man used to miracles. Life had been unkind to him, chiseling away at his faith one heartbreak at a time. 2 years ago, he'd lost his wife, Mia, to a car accident on a rainy Tuesday morning, the same morning their daughter Harper turned 7. The grief didn't come in waves, it was a permanent storm, one that lived inside him. Since then, Ethan had been doing his best to hold it together, working double shifts as a mechanic, cooking burnt pancakes on weekends, and smiling through tears just so Harper would still believe that life could be good. Harper was everything to him, bright, sensitive, and curious. But she carried her mother's quiet sadness. She rarely spoke to anyone outside of school and often stared out of her window at night, whispering to the stars as if her mom could hear her. Ethan would sometimes stand at her door, unseen, and listen. Those nights made him both proud and broken. When Ethan received a job offer in Canada, a chance to start over and finally build the life he'd promised Mia before she passed, he didn't hesitate. It meant leaving behind their small Oklahoma town, their old house filled with memories, and every comfort they'd known. But it also meant stability, healthcare, and good schools for Harper. He sold everything, packed 2 suitcases, and bought their tickets. The future, he thought, was waiting at Gate 12. The morning of their flight was bright and calm. Harper wore her pink jacket, the one with small angel wings stitched on the back, a gift from her mother, and carried her teddy bear, Mr. Buttons. They moved through security easily until they reached customs. That's when everything changed. An officer with a stern face asked to inspect their luggage again. Ethan complied, confused. Then another officer joined. Then another. Soon, Harper's backpack was pulled aside for a routine inspection. Moments later, the radio chatter began. Someone whispered possible narcotics alert, and in seconds, the terminal filled with police and their K9 units. Ethan's blood ran cold. "There's a mistake," he said, his voice shaking. "My daughter, she's just a kid." But no one listened. The dogs were released, noses to the ground, circling Harper and her bag. She looked terrified, her small frame trembling under the weight of 100 eyes. Passengers stopped to film. Someone shouted something cruel about traffickers. Ethan wanted to scream, to protect his daughter from the madness, but 2 officers held him back. One by one, the dogs sniffed Harper's bag. Some growled, some barked. The air was thick with tension. Harper's eyes filled with tears. Ethan could see it, her chest rising and falling too fast. She whispered, "Daddy, what's happening?" And then it happened. One of the dogs, a large German shepherd named Rex, stopped in front of Harper. His ears twitched. His head tilted. For a long moment, he just stared at her, as if studying her face. Then, to everyone's shock, he lowered his body and sat down, calm and still, his tail gently wagging. The handler froze. The barking stopped. The other dogs followed suit, their aggression fading instantly. The sudden silence was deafening. The officer in charge approached cautiously, confusion on his face. He sat, he muttered, "He never sits unless what?" Ethan asked desperately. The handler hesitated. "Unless he recognizes a scent he knows. Like a handler he's lost." Ethan blinked, not understanding. Then Harper knelt down slowly and extended her hand. The big dog pressed his nose to her palm, then whimpered softly, tail thumping against the floor. Tears streamed down Harper's cheeks. "Hi, boy," she whispered. "You smell like Mommy's jacket." Every eye in that terminal turned toward them. Ethan felt something shift deep inside him. The handler quickly removed the dog's tag. Rex, retired military K9, reassigned. His previous handler's name was Mia Gray. Ethan's knees almost gave out. Mia. His late wife. The woman who had once served as a military dog trainer before Harper was born. The dog sitting before them, calm, loyal, protective, was her old partner. The one she'd spoken about in bedtime stories. The one who'd been reassigned after her death. It was impossible. And yet, there he was, Rex, sitting protectively between Harper and the chaos, as if guarding what remained of the family he'd once known. The officers slowly lowered their weapons. Apologies were mumbled. The drug alert had been triggered by an old scent on the bag, a duffel once belonging to Mia. The misunderstanding unraveled as quickly as it began. But for Ethan, time had already stopped. He knelt beside Harper, tears in his eyes, and whispered, "It's her, sweetheart. He remembers her." The rest of the airport faded into silence. Harper hugged Rex, burying her face into his fur, and for the first time in years, Ethan saw his daughter truly smile, a radiant, healing smile that reminded him of Mia. People around them began clapping softly, some wiping away tears. Even the officers stepped back, humbled by the strange, beautiful reunion that no one could explain. Rex refused to leave Harper's side. His handler, Officer Donnelly, explained that Rex had been retired early due to anxiety after losing his partner, Mia. "He hasn't connected with anyone since," Donnelly said quietly. "But this? I've never seen him react like that before." Ethan asked if they could adopt him. The officer hesitated, explaining the long paperwork, background checks, and approvals needed. But then Harper spoke up, her small voice steady. "He's family," she said simply. "He found us." The officer looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Sometimes rules can wait," he said softly. Over the next week, while their travel plans were delayed, Ethan and Harper stayed in a nearby hotel, waiting for the official clearance to adopt Rex. During those days, something miraculous happened. Harper, once quiet and withdrawn, began to open up. She laughed again. She talked about school, her dreams, and her mom. She slept without nightmares for the first time in months, always with Rex curled up beside her bed. Ethan watched from the doorway each night, overwhelmed by gratitude and disbelief. He realized that maybe fate had never abandoned them. Maybe it had just been waiting for the right moment to remind them that love, real love, never truly dies. When the adoption was finally approved, Harper insisted on holding the leash herself. As they walked through the airport again, Rex trotted beside her, head held high. The same officers who'd once surrounded her smiled and waved them through. This time, there were no alarms, no fear, only peace. On the flight to Canada, Harper gazed out the window, her reflection shimmering in the clouds. "Daddy," she said softly, "I think Mommy sent Rex to tell us it's okay to be happy again." Ethan nodded, unable to speak, because deep down, he knew she was right. When they landed in their new home, life didn't magically become easy. There were still bills, long work hours, and lonely nights. But there was also laughter echoing through the apartment, muddy paw prints on the floor, and a little girl who sang again. Rex became more than a dog, he became a bridge between past and future. Whenever Harper missed her mother, she'd sit beside Rex and tell him stories, as if he carried messages back and forth between worlds. And sometimes, when Ethan looked into the dog's eyes, he could almost see Mia smiling through them. One evening, months later, Ethan found Harper sitting in the park, drawing in her sketchbook. On the page was a picture of a woman, a little girl, and a big German shepherd, all surrounded by sunlight. Harper looked up and said, "Daddy, do you think Mommy is proud of us?" Ethan smiled, brushing a tear from his cheek. "I think she's right here with us, kiddo. Always has been." That night, as they walked home with Rex trotting happily beside them, the city lights flickered in the distance like 1,000 small stars. And Ethan realized something he'd forgotten long ago, that even after the darkest storms, love has a way of finding you again, often in the most unexpected forms. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that love, hope, and second chances can still exist, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Moments Story. Your support helps us bring more true, heartwarming stories to light.